Welcome to Telltale Books. This channel is all about all literature, though we do lean heavily on more imaginative, speculative literature, horror, fantasy, science fiction. We do talk about all types of literature. We like a very wide variety of authors, but there's one author that got me started into reading, and that is H.G. Wells. And I'm putting this video up on the anniversary of H.G. Wells' birth. He was born in 1866, I believe, on September 21st. Happens to be the same birthday as Stephen King. So I'm doing a double feature today. We're putting up both Stephen King's Duma Key and this one about H.G. Wells. And it's a little different H.G. Wells, something that you may not even know he ever did. In this book, it's one of his earliest books. It is The Wheels of Chance. Now, before I get into it, I want to talk about the volume that I just received. I have not actually read this physical book. I read The Wheels of Chance in a digital edition, an ebook, because I could not find just a regular book of it. But you can get ebooks of all of H.G. Wells' work, and a lot of them are free. I think this one was free too. But there is a publisher decided to go ahead and do a special edition, limited edition. So if you're interested, get there fast and pick up a copy of this. It's King's Langley Press. And they decided to do this limited edition, this beautiful limited edition slip-cased volume of The Wheels of Chance. And it's got a cover that's printed right on the cloth, just like the old books used to be, and it's beautiful illustration. It's fully illustrated throughout. It even has a map of the locations in the book, and beautiful watercolor illustrations that I believe were commissioned for the book. There's also some black and white illustrations, which I believe came from the original magazine serialization of this book. And it has a ribbon bookmark sewn in. It's a very beautiful edition of The Wheels of Chance. Something that I wish we would see a lot more of H.G. Wells' work given treatments like this. Just not enough of that going on. Even some of his most popular works, you can't find a really, really beautiful limited edition of it. Anyway, so that it was offered for pre-order earlier this year. They just released copies of it. So if you go and find them now online, they'll ship it right out as soon as you pay the money. And it's a beautiful book. I would really, really, if you love beautiful books and you love H.G. Wells, you gotta get this book. It's not one you're going to see very often again. So I would go and pick that up. Well, I did go and pick that up. I mean, because I really, like I say, I read an ebook. I couldn't get a physical book. I prefer physical books for my collection. I would have been fine with just like a really nice trade paperback of it, but somebody came out with a beautiful slipcased edition. It's right up my alley. Anyway, you've probably never heard of Wheels of Chance, because it's not like The Time Machine, The War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man, Island of Dr. Moreau. It's not a scientific romance, which makes it very different from, well, not that Wells did nothing but write science fiction. He wrote a wide variety of stuff. He wrote a lot of nonfiction. He wrote textbooks. Um, wrote his science fiction books. He wrote a lot of other types of books. And he also, after 1900, he really wanted to become more than just a scientific romance author. He wanted to be taken seriously like his friends, Henry James and Joseph Conrad, wanted to be taken seriously as a literate author. And so he wrote, he started out with books that were more social comedies. And I've reviewed a couple of those already. But this one was written at a time before he really was pushing to become a more acceptable writer. But he wrote this social comedy. And he wrote it not too long after he published The Time Machine. I think he did Time Machine and The Wonderful Visit. I forget exactly, but there were a couple novels before this one, but this was still very early in Wells' career that he did The Wheels of Chance. So it was very different from anything else he published back at that time. And it's a romantic comedy which takes a look at a situation that kind of developed in England around the suburbs of London in the late 1890s with the popularity of bicycles. Now, bicycles at that time were expensive. So it was mostly the wealthy that were buying bicycles and going out riding around the countryside. Well, the main character, I forget his name, because it's actually been like 3 or 4 years since I read this. The main character, he saves up. Scrimson saves all his money because he wants to get a bike. Partly because he wants to try to fit into that. He wants to try to move himself up socially and wants to try and fit into that world. And he's seeing all these people off on their bicycles and he wants to join them. So he saves his money religiously and until he has enough to buy his bicycle. And so at the start of the book, he gets on his bicycle and he goes on a journey, an odyssey really, where he rides way off into the English countryside. And now he's taken off of work and he's going to be gone for days, just riding his bike, staying in inns, eating at inns and pubs, and meeting these people. And of course, along the way, he comes across a woman who he's interested in, and so he starts trying to arrange accidental meetings with her so that he could possibly get to know her and get close to her. And I'm going to stop the synopsis from there. It goes into adventures of the two of them meeting and getting split up and whatever, and going off and into the English countryside. And along the way, as they get to know one another better, Wells gets into the fact that this guy is not of her social status. And that he, and he brings up this whole social situation of how this freedom the bicycle has created for people at that time was only accessible to the rich, and that everybody really wanted that kind of freedom and mobility. But being a relatively new invention, it was only available to those who had enough money. I really enjoyed the book. Obviously, what got me into science fiction and what got me into H.G. Wells were the Time Machine, the War of the Worlds, the Invisible Man, that whole group of his early science fiction novels. It's what got me into reading. It's what got me into science fiction, and it's what got me forever into H.G. Wells as my very favorite author. And this wasn't one of those, and this isn't one of those. It's not scientific romance. It's not science fiction. It's not even fantasy. It's romantic comedy. But it's very well done in a way that is uniquely Wellsian. The characters are interesting and well crafted. The book is well written. Remember, this is one of his earliest books. It's very well written. The characters are excellent. I really got into them and got into his story and cheered for him. But it's not my very favorite Wells. Obviously, I have to say Time Machine is far above the rest, and I like all the science fiction ones better than this. But it is a really good book. It deserves to be better known. It really did deserve this beautiful edition, and this beautiful edition really deserves to sell out, because the publishers, they took a chance on that one. I think that most of the people watching BookTube are not ever going to pick this book up and read it. So they took a chance on it. It's a fairly exclusive group of people who would be attracted to this book. I would say that everybody who's outside that exclusive group of diehard H.G. Wells people, if you love Victorian literature, if you love Edwardian literature, I think this was still the reign of Queen Victoria. 1896, I believe it was. If you love authors like Henry James, this is Wells trying to be that. And he may fall short of Henry James for you, but I still think if you're looking for a good, well-written romantic comedy, social comedy, written during that era, this is the book for you. You should really get a hold of this and read it. I think you're going to like it. It's very different from H.G. Wells. It's not what you would expect from H.G. Wells, but it's a very, very good book. So, happy birthday, H.G. Wells. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you'll give The Wheels of Chance a try. And I hope you will like and subscribe to us. I'm going to have a lot more H.G. Wells on here. Come on back for more of them.